Hey there, welcome back. It is Adam and Billy. We're doing another episode of Breaking Down Bad for you. It's been a couple of weeks now. I want to tell you this is going to be a little unconventional, if you will. We're going to try cram in about 3 episodes into one of our episodes, and try to, for the sake of time, as far as like how long this is going to take us to get through all the entire series. We want to try to get through our shortest season is season one, so we want to try to get through that. I'd say as quickly as possible. So it's been a couple of weeks. We skipped last week because of life, and so we're going to try to get through episode 4, 5, and 6 because they kind of run together. At least 4 and 5 run together, and we're gonna focus more on the locations. Um, as you know from watching, I mean, when the last where we end up in episode 3, where Walt is going to reveal, or he's going to tell his family about his diagnosis, and at the same time, in the subplot, plot B, if you will, Jesse is dealing with his family. He's going to be visiting his parents, and we're going to meet his parents and his brother. And so we're going to get a little, I keep using the word heavy when it comes to story, because this is like the real life of the characters, and it kind of slows down. I'll let Billy say something here, and then we'll go right into the first few locations.
Well, welcome. This, as he said, this is very unconventional. I'm sitting in an unnamed parking lot in a rental vehicle. So
That's right.
and trying to do 3 episodes in one, which, as he said, makes sense. I mean, a lot of it does kind of feel like it runs together. It's a lot of Walt's, explaining the diagnosis to his family, and just kind of dealing with the family stuff there. And then we also get to see some of Jesse and his family, his parents, and sort of the relationship that they have, and even his little brother, which I remember the first time I watched Breaking Bad, I did not see that coming. I didn't see that he was going to have a younger brother. So there was some interesting things there. But yeah, this is going to be a little different, trying to talk about 3 episodes, and then remembering, I guess, what happened within each episode. But none of that's really necessary, as long as we kind of just cover what does happen. It doesn't matter whether it was in 4 or 5, or
Right.
whatever it happens to be. It's just we'll kind of talk about our memory of it, and the location. So let's get into it.
Well, again, this is about our experience with the show, and more about the locations. It's more location focused, and us going to them. So, with that said, without any further ado, we're going to get right into it. Well, once Walt breaks it down, you got the family in the backyard, and he tells them how he met Skylar, and then eventually she gets upset because she knows he told her off camera about the diagnosis. Putting all that aside, we know that's at his house. But the first location that we see that we haven't seen, the new one, if you will, is the first time we see the inside of a Mesa Credit Union location. It's not the one that he gets the money out for the RV, but it's just another location. And all we see is we do see the interior, because he pulls in a parking lot, and he's trying to park, and here comes a very whatever you want to call him character. We do see him again in Better Call Saul, Ken, the infamous Ken Wins, and he takes his parking space, and Walt doesn't take that very good, doesn't like that, and he goes out, he goes on in, and he gets to learn more about this character while he's on his phone and Bluetooth, and he's talking about his what he does in stocks and whatnot. But anyway, the location is it's not a credit union in real life. I don't remember what it is. Only thing I remember about it is it's in the South Valley, which I would have never guessed. It's on the way to Los Pollos Hermanos. So I think it's even on Isleta, because Isleta runs quite a bit of ways. And you have a number of locations on Isleta Boulevard, and it's one of them, and it's on the left-hand side. And I remember there was like this wrought iron gate. It was closed. This is like the first time that we went, and we couldn't even get into the lot. Like, so any pictures that we have were literally from the almost from the road, the sidewalk, because we couldn't get into it. And then after that, we never really any future trips. We never really tried to revisit that location. It was just not really a big one for us. So that's all I have as far as that one goes. I don't even know what memories you have about it, but because you were there.
I have, yeah, I have. Strangely, it's interesting bringing this back up because I have very little memory of that. I do remember the gate. I do remember that we couldn't get up to it. And it's, I guess, another thing I would point out about this, which it won't be just this location, but I think I've said this before, but this was also back when, it was our first time. We were not doing filming locations the way we do them now. Mm-hmm. It was pretty much just kind of like, oh, there it is. That's the location. I realized after looking back through some of my oldest Breaking Bad photos that I have a lot where I've just taken a picture of the spot, and a lot of them I'm not even in. It's just like, oh, there's that, and it's a quick one. It's not a super important one, and this would fall into that category. So it was kind of like, oh, there it is. Snap the photo. You're not in the photo, but you got a picture of it, and so it was. This one, of course, we couldn't get access. And like Adam said, it's just not one that I don't know. Is it so much that we didn't care to go back, but it just wasn't, it was never a priority. There was always so much more to do.
There's so much more out there. Yeah.
And I have very little memory of it other than the gate, really just going and probably snapping from the other side of the gate and moving on.
Yeah, so that is the Mesa. I think it's the one and only time we see the inside of a Mesa credit union. And moving on, we're going to jump over to Jesse's storyline. We get to see his family, and we get to see the Pinkman house first time. And that's I don't know what I would call this neighborhood, but it is a very prominently used area in production. Like Better Call Saul has used it. Breaking Bad's used it. Other productions have used this not just this house, but this area, neighborhood of houses in Albuquerque, because you can make it look into like any town. But anyway, it's a big 2-story house. Everybody knows what it looks like. I call it a maroon magenta type house. But first time we get to see it and see his parents in the inside. Now I don't recall, honestly, I don't recall ever getting a photo standing in front of this house, or if I ever had an interest of doing that. It was one of those, like you said, let's just take a picture. This is Jesse Pinkman's or his parents' house. And I remember later on, because this house will be shown several times, where Hank sits out with Miss Pinkman right in the front. I don't know what you would call it, but it's right out front. Yeah. The only time that I remember getting a photo at the house, and it was at night, and it was for El Camino. And that was when Jesse is on the side of the house, and he's like, sneaking around the side, and it was at night. And that's the only time that's the only memory I have of getting a photo there. I don't recall like me being in one. So
Yeah, I would say so. Looking back through my photos, because I did not get that shot. I was not with you when you got the shot from El Camino, but I do recall it. And I remember watching El Camino for the first time and seeing that scene, and it's like, oh my God, it's the same house, you know,
mhm.
really cool. But yeah, this was definitely another one. I looked through all of my photos. I don't have any photos of me in them. So I'm guessing you don't either, because on that trip we were together. I have a feeling it was just we rolled up on the place. There it is. Um, I did get, interestingly enough, I managed to take enough shots that I got all the angles. So I do have the angle from El Camino, strangely, even though it wouldn't happen for several years later. But
Yeah.
and then I have the image of the porch. Um, I didn't get on to the property, but you could clearly tell it's the same porch. And then I have a wide of the house. And then the only other shot I have is it's actually on the taken on like I'm kind of on the sidewalk, and it's mostly just a tree. And I was looking at it this afternoon, and I was like, what the hell is that? What was I taking a picture of? And then I remembered that that's the spot where Jesse's going to get back into his car. And I think his dad comes out and he has that conversation with his dad, or maybe it's that he's coming back to the house. I can't remember exactly what's happening in the scene. I just remember the two of them standing out by Jesse's car is parked right there on the side of the road next to that tree. So I do have that angle. But for some strange reason, I'm not in any of the shots. And the only thing I could chalk it up to is like I said, this was just another example of here it is. Let's take our photos of this place and move on.
It just wasn't important for us to stand in and be like, "Hey, here we are." We did the same thing. Another one that comes to mind is Beneke's house, which we'll get to when we get to that episode. One thing I wanted to point out about the Pinkman house is going back to how this neighborhood and everything is used in a lot of other productions. You actually do see the Pinkman house at night in the background of a Better Call Saul episode. It is supposed to be in Nebraska, Omaha. It's one of the Gene beginning openings of the season, and he is on foot. He's going through. I can't remember the context, but it was pointed out. I think Mark Valdez might have pointed it out. But yeah, but moving right along, these next two we're going to go through real fast because we did not, believe it or not, we have not seen every single exterior that has been shown to us on frame. Because for one, some of these aren't standing anymore; they're not in operation; they're not accessible. But or they just weren't that important to us to prioritize when there were so many others. But the next one is I call it a Chinese restaurant because now I'll flash up the clip, but it's when Jesse is inside his parents' house. He gets a call from Combo. It's at night. Combo, we didn't see where Combo is. He's outside. He's standing outside of a structure. It's well lit. You could tell that's why they picked it because of the way the architecture was of the building and then the lighting. And there's a sign, like you could see the open windows, which looks like it resembles a diner, but you could see the marquee sign, and it has like advertising, like some type of chicken bowl or Chinese food, right? So that's why I call it a Chinese restaurant. And it's just Combo standing outside on the phone with Jesse saying that he's got some people, some friends that are in town, and they tasted his stuff, and it's so sweet, and they're looking to party. Yeah. So
So so sweet.
so sweet. And Jesse's like, I'm not, if you want, I'm not getting me out. I'm not giving any more freebies out. If you want freebie, go to Salvation Army. So that's it. That's the only location. Billy probably didn't have anything to say about it because we've never went. But I just wanted to bring it up because we're being very completionist and thorough about all the spots. in the entire series, even if we didn't cover them. So, do you have anything to say about it?
Yes, we need to go back to Albuquerque just to get that spot.
Okay, hey, never too late. Um, yeah, if it's still standing, whatever it may be today. But moving on, the next one is another exterior that just was not really that big of a deal to us. Back to Walt's story, Walt and Skylar, they
Mhm.
go to the oncology center, and we have this establishing shot of what is the oncology center, and I can see it in my head. I'll flash the clip here, but we did not go to it. I don't even remember what it is. If I might be wrong, but it might even be a part of UNM. Um, so I don't have anything else to say about that because we didn't go.
The only thing I would say about it is, this is more generalization here, but it's so interesting what locations mean nothing to you and
Yeah,
what locations are like. You have your white whales. You have, well, I have to get these because they're recognizable. But and then it's so funny that there are some that literally mean nothing to you. I feel like I remember we talked about this, and it was like, I don't care. This is not one uh, that I care about spending time on. And the other thing you got to remember is the way that we did it in those early days is we would have these really long lists, and it was the location and the address of that location. And we'd go to the locations and then we check them off the list. And we were constantly thumbing through the pages looking at it. It's like, well, we still have this and this and this. And then as we start whittling them down, it's locations like this that's like, I'm not going to worry about it.
right.
So, but it's funny because, the more you do, all of a sudden you realize over time, well, we never did hit this and we never did hit that. And they're not really big, important, or memorable locations, but yet the completionist side of you comes out. And it's like, well, I kind of want to get them just so I can say that I've been there. But this is one that, never did anything for me.
Yeah, so that's pretty much it when it comes to the oncology center. I mean, we can always go back and get it if we really wanted to, but it's just not that important. So, last but not least, for episode 4, our last location, we're going to bookend this episode with Ken, where we started for the most part. Uh, Walt goes to, in real life, Danny's Auto Service, which stood for a while. It might even still be Danny's Auto Service. Every time I go to Albuquerque, I always seem to pass by it, and I have not found an instance where I've seen it not in operation or has changed hands or anything. So I'm going to say it's still standing and it looks exactly like it did back then. But this is the location where, uh, well, Ken goes to gas up and Walt decides to, what does he do? He puts water in is
He
it
puts a
water?
No, well, he puts the windshield washing squeegee, soaks it in water, and
Yes.
puts that on the battery.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. And well, you know what happens? The car goes up in flames, and that's how we end. See the episode. See, I keep wanting to say season 4, episode 4, Cancer Man. Uh, so Walt gets his he winds up Ken there, and little did we know we would see Ken many years later in Better Call Saul.
Yes.
The actor picked him right back up. I guess we're going to move right along into episode 5. It opens up with Jesse. We're seeing Jesse. He's been staying with his family, and he's trying to clean up his act. He's in an interview, and he's looking to get a sales job, but he doesn't realize that that's not the role. That's not the position that he's being interviewed for. And little does he know, well, he's at Arroyo Realty,
Mhm.
downtown Albuquerque, which is not ever was a realty group, as far as I know. But what's that?
Wasn't it a jewelry store?
I don't know. Maybe so. Maybe so. That I'm not remembering. I remember being there and getting. Didn't we go up to the door and
Yeah,
take a picture of the door? Yeah. And I don't even remember trying to recreate where Badger stood, but
I
I'm gonna
did
let you.
that.
You probably remember way more than I do about this location, but I'll just say this is where the interview was. He sees Badger working out there, and I do remember taking a picture across the street and at the door, and that is my memory of that spot.
Yeah, I don't have a, I mean, I wouldn't say I have a ton of memory of that. In fact, it really came back looking through the photos. All I really have is, yeah, a photo at the door, and then I know I have a photo standing out on that corner, where Badger's holding up the sign over his head. So there is a picture of me, which I'm sure you'll see here in a second, looking like a goon, where I'm holding my hands up over my head. Um, but and I feel the only reason I feel like I remember was thinking it was a jewelry store because I feel like when we poked our heads into the windows, just looked in there. I don't know. I could be way off, but for some reason, I just remember seeing these glass cases.
I don't
And
even remember it being in operation. Was
yeah,
it?
yeah, I was going to say it was not in operation. I just remember seeing glass cases, which made me think that it used to be a jewelry store at one time.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's it.
My memory is a little faded on looking at the interior. I just remember the door and then the outside. It was a quick one. Now the next scene, which and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's depicted as it being behind where they just were. And I'm not remembering if that's actually the case. I just remember that. Okay, you're shaking your head. No, so I was kind of right. I just remember it being behind the Burke's Tiki Lounge.
Yes.
Right, right. It's in an alley area, and
Yeah.
in the show, it's like behind where they just were, and that's not the case. Now it's not far. I don't think it's far from each other, but it's not like it's depicted in the show. But that's a very memorable spot because it was just one of those days. This is one of the examples of us having fun. We were this is one of the ones that I remember we just had we had some fun with it. Like uh I guess I don't know, this is like pre-tripod day, right? I don't know. But I remember setting my phone up because we got video of us like reenacting the characters with the cigarette and the poses, and I've got clips of that. It's my first time that I can remember where we're doing a video where I can get screenshots out of,
Mhm.
and I do that a lot now today because I can get more shots out of that. But I have video of us like miming all this and standing where Aaron Paul was, standing where Matt Jones was, and I mean, you see it all there. And I don't know if I know Burke's Tiki Lounge is. I'm not sure. I'm confused on if it's been moved or it's been shut down. But that was a pretty big staple. Like if you're in downtown, you'd see that. I don't know I don't know what happened to it. So
Well, you correct me if I'm wrong, because one thing I can say confidently is you are much better at geography than I am, and remembering roads and street names. And maybe it's because I grew up on an island. I never committed those kinds of things to memory, so I can't say. Uh, all I can say is no, it was not right behind. Um, where they were, standing out doing the advertising or whatever, like it's depicted in the show. But it isn't far away, and it was obvious that they chose that alley because of the mural, the Tiki Lounge on the wall in the background. And yes, I do remember the video. I have video footage of that as well. In fact, I watched it on my lunch break today. So that was kind of neat. And that is what obviously we were doing. There was not a lot of talking in the video. It was just kind of us. We'd get into our spots, and then we do our do our poses with the intent of grabbing screenshots out of it. You know, it's funny, real quick. It's clearly getting darker here.
Yeah, I see that.
Am I really dark? I don't look too bad on my end.
You're not really. No. Well, it's definitely darkened up. So the next spot we're gonna try to get through these here. The next spot is the Schwartz house. The first time we see the Schwartz house, it is Schwartz house number one. We actually see two houses in the entire series for uh oh my god, what is Gretchen and Elliot Schwartz? And this house is actually in, I want to say it's Corrales or it's not Corrales. It's like Ranchos de Albuquerque, northern area, but it's really beautiful. And I'll tell you, this was always on our list, but we just it never could make it happen. It was, I don't know, there was just so much more to get, and it was like we'll get to it, we'll get to it. We finally got to it about 4 years into our adventures. In 2018, we finally get to it, and we couldn't actually get on the property. It's gated, but it looks exactly like it did. I mean, we as you can see here, um, we rolled by it. We got up to the gate. We get some zoom in shots. You could see where Walton and Skylar are walking through, where the birthday party was. But other than that, I mean, we didn't get onto the property, so there was no lining up of anything, no experience like that. But just from the property, it looks exactly like it did in the show. But that's all I
Yeah.
have to say about it.
Well, I do remember we when we rolled up on it. Obviously, it's gated. When we drove by, of course, we're filming as we're driving by, and I do remember talking about like, well, maybe if we loiter around out here long enough, someone will come out, and then we can, which is pretty typical of something we do. Maybe someone will come out and approach us, and we can tell them why we're there, and to be honest with you, we've had a lot of good luck with that happening.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a couple of instances where it has not worked in our favor, but more often than not, certainly when it comes to Breaking Bad locations, we've always had such good luck with that. I can think of two right off the top of my head that did not go well doing that. But for the most part, yeah, once people notice you and you tell them why you're there, it works out pretty well. And unfortunately, in this case, nobody came out because I do remember we went back and forth a couple of times. And my most vivid memory of this location was really the most standout thing to me was the water fountain.
Yeah.
Out. So you have the water fountain, and then the cars can kind of roll up around it. And so it's that. And then when Walt and Skylar come, obviously they walk in through that door, but they also come out. If I remember correctly, he realizes in that moment that Skylar told Gretchen and Elliot about the diagnosis, which he was unaware of at the time. They're not happy with each other, which actually that kind of leads us into the talking pillow, does it not? The famous talking pillow.
Mm-hmm. The talking pillow, which I currently have, but I don't want to. I want you to continue talking about the talking pillow. So here it is. Well,
could you digitally pass it to me then?
Yeah, please? Here it is.
All right, I've got the talking pillow now.
Yeah, the talking pillow. This is just one of those things that, for whatever reason, is so memorable with Breaking Bad, and there was definitely this brings back some of that comedic element that the earlier seasons of Breaking Bad had quite a bit of, and it was humorous. So you have the family, you got Walt Jr. and Skylar, Hank and Marie are over, and they're sitting around the living room in the white residence, and Skylar decides they're going to have a talking pillow where everybody can pass it around the room and decide, can talk and say what they have to say about Walt and his diagnosis. And And we get to learn here that Skyler and Walt Jr. they don't understand why Walt, doesn't want the treatment. And they're trying to encourage him to do that. And I think everyone in the room was surprised to discover that Hank and Marie were like, well, he should be able to do what he wants. He should have choice. And then that creates a little bit of animosity between Skyler and Marie, I recall, because Skyler's sort of feeling like, you're my sister, you're supposed to back me up, you're supposed to support me on this, and Marie's like, I don't agree with it. Yeah, obviously that was all, it was in the White residence, but obviously all done on set because none of the interiors took place in the actual home.
I'm curious to know how long it took to shoot that, because there's so much that goes into shooting group scenes like that. It's not as easy as it might look, because you have a lot of not checkpoint. That's not the word I'm looking for. Beats that you have to hit, and there's different takes for different angles, and you want to try something different. I mean, I can only imagine how that had to be probably almost a full day, I would think. Easy.
I think they do a lot of this would be an example of, like, you got that many actors in the same spot at the same time, they get a lot of coverage. So you have a camera. I mean, they may have had a camera on every actor in the scene. And then, of course, with editing, they cut out the, when they've got to cut away and give a reaction shot of Skyler when Marie's saying this or whatever. That's where the magic happens. A lot of people don't realize how much magic happens in the editing of all of this.
Absolutely.
It's not just, oh, these guys are such great actors. It's, we've decided to cut this chunk of this person's reaction from this footage on this camera because it works so well. You know what I mean? As opposed to staying static on Skyler while she's talking. You got to get those reactions because it makes it more believable, makes it seem like a real conversation. And I remember feeling, man, Cranston was so good in this scene. He was just, you could feel the anxiety and the, he was almost like a cowering little boy in a corner, and he was almost afraid to tell everybody that he didn't want to.
Well, his son tells him exactly what he was.
Yeah. Yeah. What does he say?
Tell your dad how you feel.
I'm pissed off.
Tell him.
I'm pissed off. Cause you're a pussy.
Why do I feel uncomfortable even repeating that line right now?
Yeah, I know.
Does that mean I'm getting old?
I guess so, man. I'll
just bring in the clip right now. There you
You're
go.
a pussy.
Boom.
But it's hilarious. It's one of the most memorable lines in that whole scene. And yes, it's not meant to be funny, but it does lighten up things because we're not laughing at him, but come on. I think a lot of people would agree that they chuckled when they heard that line. I can only imagine the pressure that goes behind the editor because he's the one that's actually he or she is actually the one that's, I think, is really making the show what it is. So
100. Yeah. Editors do not get the credit that they really deserve. In I think in the industry, they're getting that credit from their peers and the people in the other departments. Like, I think they, working in the filmmaking industry, they know how important it is and how much of an art editing is in and of itself. But what viewers don't really realize, it's easy to see, Breaking Bad created by Vince Gilligan on your screen. And so in your mind, you attach Vince Gilligan to everything that you're seeing, and you're going, the guy's a genius, without stopping and thinking about, well, it was actually somebody else's eye that cut, and sometimes multiple people's eyes that cut this the way that you're seeing it. So the way that you're perceiving it, that episode of Breaking Bad in that we're talking about here, and how great it is, that is what it is because of the editors that they had cutting that together. And of course, all those things have to be approved by Vince and some other
The director.
right. So, and the director of any given episode. It all has to be approved. But at the end of the day, these are the guys that are making the cuts. They are without a doubt the biggest unsung heroes of some of the film and television ever made.
So true. So true. So we're going to go to our next location, which is, speaking of Junior and his potty mouth, we're going to go, he continues to be potty and a bad boy, and he tries to buy some beer with his buddies outside of the Tri-H convenience store. Now, this is like, I don't know if it's not downtown. It's like central, but it's off of Yale. I remember that it's off of Yale. There's a lot over there. I'm right across the street. Actually, is the church, which is the rehab center that Jesse will meet Andrea later on in season 3, I think. But that's all. It's all right there. So. Tri-H convenience store. We see it a few times actually. Skylar goes to put up some of these flyers at the convenience store. We get to see Walt and Jesse actually have a scene inside there in the later episode. But in this particular episode, they're trying to get some beer, and it's suggested that they ask this business guy to no, not a business guy, right? It's the guy after the business guy, because the business guy was, yeah. So they asked the next dude, and it happens to be either a TABC guy or an officer, off-duty officer, and he says, "You realize this is illegal, right?"
What you're asking is illegal.
And the acting, I'll never forget. I actually just watched that scene in I don't say this a lot about Breaking Bad, but that particular line is a little cringe every time I hear it, because the actor just delivers it in such a non-believable way. But I love Junior's response. No, it's not.
No, it's not.
But yeah, that happens right outside there. Hank comes and picks him up. Yeah, we'll talk more about the store, but in the context of this episode, that's it. And I don't think we have pictures there, but I don't know if we're going to really show you any, because we have pictures there that are in context to other moments that happen there. Unless, did we take any that we're trying to recreate that scenery?
Not so much recreating the scene, I would say, but we do have I mean, obviously we have a couple of shots of the exterior, and that's right there where they're standing. I know I have some of those. I also have some video footage of, walking up on the left side of the building, which obviously we'll discuss later because more happens there. But and then of course walking right up onto the walkway to the entrance to the store, which is where all that action takes place. So I don't have much to say about this location other than I remember it being sketchy. I remember being kind of sketched out at this location. Like it seemed like a kind of a dangerous spot to be.
Well, it's funny because it does seem that way, but because I felt that too. But I've been there a handful of times for different reasons, and I never feel. But beyond that initial feeling, there's nothing that gives me reason to think. Nothing that around that I've experienced that gave me reason to think even more about, like that idea. It's just one of those spots that just gives off that vibe, but I don't think it's bad as we think.
Could I just point something out real quick before we move
Yeah.
on to the nation? Another thing that Breaking Bad is known for is its time lapse segments. There's a lot of time lapse segments in Breaking Bad, and I just wanted to say that I've been sitting in this spot for as long as we've been doing what we've been doing, and it was daylight earlier, and now it's getting dark. So when you watch this through, if you want to start it over again and fast forward through it, you'll get kind of like an homage to the Breaking Bad time lapse where you'll just see me gradually getting darker and darker and darker.
We planned it this way too.
We did because we're big of fans.
We're that on that level that we planned it this way. That's why he's in his car, because he's like, hey, well, this is the only way I can do it. But it's funny that he mentioned that, because I didn't bring these up because they're not really locations that are worth talking about. I mean, I guess you could, but we'd have 3-hour episodes of this. There were actually a couple of time lapses in these episodes that we're talking about, and I didn't bring them up because they're quick and they're just like in the middle of different parts of Albuquerque, but they're really cool. Breaking Bad is known for its time lapses, and I do remember seeing 2 or 3. I don't know if it's episode 5 or 4, or maybe even 6 coming up, but I did see them in this rewatch. So there you go. We have some time lapses. We have we're recording a time lapse as we speak here. We just finished it. So okay, keep it on moving. So we're gonna go right into episode 6. Do you remember the title? I'm forgetting the title of this one.
Oh, I hate that you're asking me that, because no, I don't.
I'll flash it up. But this is a pretty dense episode. There's a lot to talk about. We'll try to get it all. I'll just say the first new location that we see, and we will see it in the beginning, because this is one of the first examples of how Breaking Bad starts off with the ending of an episode. You have no idea what you're watching. You're like, what? Walt's bald? Why does he look like why is his nose bleeding? Why is he coming out of this like really ghetto looking area? And what's going on? Well, we will bookend. We'll see. We'll lead up to that moment at the end of this episode, and that location is, we call it Tuco's headquarters, Tuco's hideout, whatever you want to call it. But it's Java Joe's in real life, downtown Albuquerque, literally right across the street from where Mr. Saul Goodman's bench was in that episode that we'll talk about in season 2. But right there, it's still Java Joe's, and we've been to Java Joe's. You can't go to Albuquerque and not see Java Joe's when you're passing through. I don't remember exactly what early shots I have of me being there, but I did take some really recent within the last year or so of some now and thens, which is basically like a shot of the show, and then a shot today with not me in it, and just kind of like showing that. But our flash shows up. I think we have been inside to order something, and it's nothing like it looks on the show. We never got upstairs because I think it's like an office for the business. But other than obviously they chose it for the mural and everything. But other than that, I mean, that's another one that's like, they make it look real sketchy, but it's nothing like that in real life. It's nothing. It's in the heart of, it's super public. There's a park right there, and it's the mural that makes it look like that.
So this one, yeah, looking back at what I have for this one, let me just say this. When thinking about certain spots in Albuquerque for Breaking Bad that you just have to hit. You know, like if you had to pick 10 locations from the entire series, I remember feeling this way early on too. Like 10 locations from the entire series that you know were must see tourist stops for Breaking Bad fans in Albuquerque. Java Joe's is always on that list. It's just there's something about it. It's kind of iconic. But looking back through my pictures of this place, I realized looking at my photos, the only one that I'm in taken at Java Joe's, I'm actually on the side of the building where the mural is. There's a couple of posts there for that entrance. It's like anybody who rode a bike in Albuquerque, that was the entrance they used. Because I remember there were some bikes in that shot when I was in there, and I was just standing, leaned up against one of those posts with the mural in the background. I'm looking at my photos, and I'm going, "Why the hell am I standing there?" You know, like why? Obviously, you see it in the shot in the show, but that's not the shot that you want. You know, you want to get out front under the sign where the air conditioners come down and that wide, or even standing in the street like Walt was when he's leaving from that meeting with Tuco. And I searched and searched, man. I know we went back there a couple of times, but for some reason, that's the only image I have of that place with me in it.
I think we were just trying to stand in front of the mural. Like we had no. It was just one of back in the days, during the days we didn't care about lining up, standing where the characters were. We were just like, "Hey, here we are. Let's stand right in front of the mural because that's what everybody looks at." But yeah, we have a couple of locations that are shown multiple times and used in different contexts. The first one is it's a cook site, and the first two characters that go out and cook are Jesse and Badger cook out in the Mesa. I call it the Mesa. What I refer to as the Mesa going forward is it's defined as the area, all the land that is behind Albuquerque Studios, the former Q Studios, now Netflix Studios. All that land that depicts as desert and field. When you think of 4 days out, you're thinking of the Mesa out in Albuquerque. Well, Jesse and Badger go out to cook, and that is the first time we see that ever in the series. Shit, that might have even been at the end of episode 5, but it doesn't matter. Later on, Walt and Jesse get back out there, and then this is a pretty pivotal moment because this is where Jesse finds out, and Walt finally tells him about his cancer, and then Jesse tells him that about his aunt succumbing to her disease, and that happened all out there in the Mesa. And of course, we'll see it again in season 2 for 4 days out. And yes, we have been there. We didn't go out there for the context of this episode. I mean, there's not really much you can do. I mean, it's just land. There's not much to say about these. You can line up mountains, but I mean, do you have anything to say about the Mesa?
No, other than there is a photo here of at least of me out there on the Mesa. I don't know, to be honest with you, if it had anything to do with this particular location. I don't believe that it did. I think we were out there for various things. Like you said, it gets used a lot. A lot of Breaking Bad was filmed out there. And so I'm not 100% sure what I'm out there for, but if you want to see an image of it,
Yeah.
I got one.
Yeah, we'll have more to show when we talk about 4 days out. One of our favorites, or one of my favorite early episodes, we actually did our 4 days out photo shoot out there with Funyuns and everything. So we'll get to that when we get to that. And then speaking of our second location, it starts off as a sole location where Hank and Gomi, they meet up, and their cars are parked. They don't even get out. They're in their cars, and they're just talking through their car windows. And they're obviously like in some rundown motel. That motel at the time was the Express Inn. This is down the road from the wall. The doghouse. It's literally right there. At the end of that scene, it starts a montage. Breaking Bad is also known for fantastic montages, and we get to see Jesse slinging. He's making fat sacks, and his first spot that he's doing some deals at is at the Express Inn. But he actually goes up to the second floor, and he's wearing the yellow shirt, and he's actually, I think he's wearing the black shirt with the red print. Anyway, you could see the room number and everything. And I remember at one point, I don't remember if you were with me, man, but I remember going up there and just taking it all in, because I'm like, this is where Jesse was doing a deal, even though it was for a couple of seconds, because it was one of those spots that you and I never really prioritized. And I think I was just there one time, and I was like, I got these straggler locations. I want to finally get to the Express Inn. So I have been to the Express Inn, and I don't recall Billy with me. I think I was solo.
Yeah, no, I definitely wasn't with you. Yeah, I think back, again, back in the early days, like, we were more thinking about the pivotal things and the pivotal locations, notable locations, in those early episodes. And I don't really think montage sequences were really top of mind at all for a while. Like that, there wasn't something that we were thinking about at all, I don't think, on the early.
No.
Obviously, when we went to the crossroads, I mean, there's a couple of quick montage sequences that happen at the crossroads as well. But we knew that at the time, and we talked about that, and we didn't try to recreate it or anything, but we were in that exact spot, and we have footage of that as well. So,
well, this montage, we can give credit to it introducing three very, I call them, prominent, iconic spots, whatever you want to call it, in Breaking Bad, and we see it multiple times. We're seeing Jesse continue doing deals, and there's a quick second of him going underneath the Garcias. It's a Mexican restaurant sign. It's at night. You do see Garcias a few times later on. Mike is out there waiting on a ride, and then we see the doghouse for the first time. The doghouse is depicted as an area where you can get have deals done, but in real life, it's not like that at all. And then the wash tub. The wash tub is an iconic, even though it's only shown very briefly, and it's at the very end of the montage. I could still hear the music fading when they're ending that montage. But the wash tub is very memorable, and it's in a montage. But you and I never really were like, let's go into the wash tub and find the machine that Jesse, like, isn't there like a team? He uses one of the machines or something. Yeah, we didn't try to like pick that out.
No, we didn't, but we did spend a little more time at the wash tub. I recall later on when you and I met up with another buddy out there to do some Better Call Saul stuff.
Right.
I do right out there by the wash tub, and aside from, I think up until that point, for me anyway, aside from rolling by it and taking shots of it, not in them or anything, just taking a shot of the location, I never did anything at the wash tub. It wasn't until we went back years later to do some Better Call Saul stuff that happens just around the corner from the wash tub. At the wash tub.
Literally, yeah.
We spent a little bit of time there and kind of recalled, the Breaking Bad moments that happened there, but that wasn't our priority at the time. But I just remember that, for me anyway, that was the
lighting, the lighting at the wash tub is what makes it very memorable to me. You got those open windows, and it's just a glow. It's very prominent, very iconic. But as a bonus, maybe I'll tack our little clip we're referring to I'll watch them at the end of this video. So stay tuned. If you made it this far, well, congrats to you. Yeah, you're a dedicated fan. We're talking to our number one fan. We'll shout her out, Michelle DeMatteis. Michelle, hello. We're saying hi to you. Stay tuned to the end because we'll leave you with some comedy gold.
Yeah,
What were you gonna say?
we're shouting you out because you put the pressure on to get, for us to get back to work.
Yes, and we are doing that right now. So we got a couple more to go here. Going back to the story because we're kind of not talking about story here. Hank and Gomi are at the Express because they're talking about the mask they found at Tahajalee, which is connected to JP Wynn. Well, they track that down. They talk to Walt. They bring it up to Walt and say, "Hey, this mask was found. It was used to cook meth. You gotta make sure you're secure and you're keeping track of your equipment. We don't want to be on to you. And all that's happening in Walt's lab. We're calling it Walt's lab room with all the glass and everything. And that's where we were when we visited the school. And I already showed those pictures in our episode 1, I believe. But what?
Except that I stumbled across some new pictures from
Okay.
Walt's lab that we'll show you now that I kind of forgot that I had. So, and it worked out really well because I don't recall if my pictures were in our earlier episode when we did the JP Wynn classroom thing, but here so it works out good that Hank shows up at the classroom. He and Walt are walking through that lab and talking about missing equipment and this and that because I have a few more from there. So
In 2015, dude, I feel like I was a kid.
yeah.
And that was 8 years ago. I mean, I don't feel old, but by any means, but I don't know,
No,
man. It's
that's
crazy.
that's why I'm in this light right now, because I want to make sure that that what you're seeing, which is pretty much almost pure black now, kind of matches what I look like.
Yeah, so that's good that you have that car light on. But
Yeah.
let's get this wrapped up before Billy is out in the middle of nowhere in pitch dark here in Maine. So continuing that story, Hank has got to get somebody from this. He's got to walk away with an arrest. He pins it on Mr. Hugo Archuleta, who we do get introduced to early on in the episode. He's a very kind and caring custodian. He's handing Walt paper towels while he's getting sick in the stall. As here you go, Mr. White. I mean, very nice, brawny gentleman, but he gets pinned with this out in the parking lot of Rio Rancho High, which I did show you guys the clip of that, of us driving through the parking lot. This was not a location we were like, oh, this is exactly where they stood. It wasn't that important to us, but we just knew right here in this parking lot is where Hank arrests Hugo. So he takes the fall because of his record, because he smoked a little pot in his days, had some possession.
This is one of the earlier moments where something, I mean, obviously with Crazy Eight, that was an example of this, but this is yet another situation where Walt's starting to take on some serious guilt for some of the things that he's responsible for. So he's completely aware that Hugo's going to be taking the fall here for something that he did. And he knows that he's a good guy. And obviously that's why we saw that earlier scene in the bathroom of him handing him the paper towels or whatever. It's to show that this is a good guy. And it's also to show, when Hank comes to make the arrest, that Walt now harbors some internal guilt over that, and should, because he's an asshole here.
Yeah, they're playing poker, and Hank tells him that they arrested Hugo, and even Junior's like, you arrested Mr. Archuleta, and he says that's gonna. He said, yeah, he had a record. Walt is clearly concerned about what kind of punishment he's going to get. So, what is that? What kind of punishment is that? He was concerned about what he was going to get because this is his actions, and that sucks, man.
Yeah.
For Hugo, and so we get to see a little Walt's conscience at least now, and there won't be much of it left, but. That is it. We're going to get to the last scene, which is one of the most iconic scenes in the series. It's so Jesse, he gets an in with Tuco through Skinny Pete, and they go to Tuco's headquarters, Java Joe's upstairs, and Skinny Pete gets a meet. He arranges a meet for Jesse and Tuco, and that doesn't go well. Long story, Jesse gets beat. He gets in the hospital. Tuca puts him in the hospital. Walt goes to visit Jesse. He doesn't like that. This is not, in order for them to make some type of, what do you call it, imprint in this business, he has to do something about this. So he shaves his head. So now we get to see Cranston, Walter White, shave his head. So now we're starting to, this is why he's bald in the beginning. So Walt makes his way back with his newly fresh shaved head. He's going to get the money back that Tuco stole, and some. And so he's making he's going to make a stance for himself and in the business. And now this is the first time we hear of Heisenberg. So we're not going to break down the entire scene. You know what all happens in the exchange, the dialogue exchange between Tuco and Walt. But basically, so Walt, he talks himself into a longer term deal with Tuco, where he's having to bring like 3 or 4 pounds in the next week. And Tuco says something like, so let me get this straight. You let me beat the piss out of your homeboy or your boy, and then you bring me more meth. And Walt's like, "What? That's where you got one thing wrong." And then he holds up the rock and he says, "This is not meth." He throws it down. It's fulminated mercury, and it blows up the compound. You got the iconic explosion everybody knows of. Right there at Java Joe's. Obviously, Java Joe's is fine. It was never blown up, but that's it. That's the end of the episode. And now we have the birth of Heisenberg, and we're at the home stretch. We're at the finale of season 1, which we will talk about. Probably going to couple that with the premiere of season 2, so we can get right into season 2. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about in season 2. So I don't have anything else to say about these episodes, unless you do.
No, I think that's pretty much it. I'm excited to get into season 2 because season 2 for me is really it is right up there, and I still to this day, man, have not fully committed one way or the other. But it could very well be my favorite season of the whole series. It's definitely a contender for favorite season of the whole series. I loved season 2.
Yeah.
Season 1 was kind of like, it introduces you to the world and it sucks you right in, and it really does. But man, season 2 it for me is on a whole other level.
And we'll talk more about how season 2, like what it did for us and how it makes us feel. But I'll just say briefly that season 2, when I think of Breaking Bad, like all of the images and everything, they come from season 2. Walt's look, the pink teddy bear. We got the introduction of 3 iconic characters that will go on to the end of Better Call Saul. And that is Mike Ehrmantraut, Gus Fring, and Saul Goodman himself, all within 3 episodes span in season 2. We have the iconic arc with Jane and Jesse. We're going to talk all that. I can't wait to talk about season 2, but that's it for these 3 episodes. We will get back on the next one and we will wrap up season 1 and go into season 2. But just to kind of give y'all a heads up, we're probably going to do a lot. I say we're probably going to bundle up episodes like this because we're talking about 62 hours or half hours, and with our schedules and whatnot, doing this from a distance, it's easier sometimes to kind of bundle up, combine episodes, especially if the story kind of they all kind of run into each other. So just look forward to seeing more of these type of discussions, multiple episode discussions. That's it. Thanks for watching again, and we'll see y'all on the next one.
Thanks, guys.